So do you want it to look like, here, I'll show you.
Like a oval, so kind of rounded off on the edges. Yeah, perfect. What's this program called?
This is AutoCAD.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So what, 1/2 inch wide, 7/8 high?
Yep.
Yeah. So you made the general shape 1/2 inch by 7/8 on AutoCAD, then you put it on Aspire.
Yeah, I did that I could have done it in Aspire also, but I'm faster at the drawing in AutoCAD.
Yeah.
And they import just fine. So this is what I use to create the toolpath though.
And what kind of machine is this that you're using? It's like an actual like computerized router type thing?
Yeah, it's the CNC router.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's money right there. Man, if I had this machine, I'd be making out here every day.
I've made quite a few things.
To the point, formative, entertaining, and protecting the Second Amendment. Welcome back to Elfster's Rifles and Reloading, and the review and my personal setup with modifications of the A&D FX120i lab scale and the AutoTrickler.com powder drop and trickle V3 unit. And if you guys happen to miss the first 3 parts to this video series, the A&D FX120i scale and AutoTrickler.com V3 combo series, I highly suggest checking that out. Maybe even go back and watching these first 3 parts first before you watch this 4th part. In the first part of that series, we did a live unboxing, getting this directly from Data Weighing Systems, a little over $1,000 ship once you figure in tax. And no joke, I got this from Data Weighing Systems in less than a week. And part 1 and part 2, I go over that information in regards to how to order this from Data Weighing Systems, in regards to getting a quote, placing that order, and watching this show up on your front doorstep and unboxing that. And then in part 2, we did the initial setup just to get the ball rolling and to give you an idea of what this package entails. Now in part 3 here, we did another live event, and I wanted to do a no BS live video event for you guys, 50 total powder drops and trickle using Varget and 23.8 grains of Varget dropped in some 5.56 cases. And it's insanely fast. during that live event, we used no reducer, and I was getting drops between roughly, 5.5 seconds, 6 seconds, all the way up to roughly 9 seconds, which I would call hyper mode, using no reducer. But I also have some settings here using a reducer. If you want to get the ultimate precision and you want to see every single speck of powder drop out of that trickler, I'm about to go over those settings with you, with a reducer and without a reducer. Well, enough of the BS talk. Let's jump right into this. I'm going to go over some of the environment changes I made here in my reloading room. And then we're going to jump right into this in regards to the overview, the modifications, and my settings. Let's get this going. Now, first and foremost, you need to make sure this thing is absolutely level. If your bench top is not level, which mine was marginally level, but not totally level, I had to get this piece of synthetic granite, which is a Corinthian style plastic countertop. And I put some adjustable feet on this. I made this myself. It really wasn't easy. Matter of fact, I went to a local countertop place that had a scrap piece laying around. I bought this for 10 bucks. And I bought some additional adjustable feet that I could adjust. And for less than 20 bucks, I made this ultra heavy, ultra flat, ultra level surface for my scales to sit on. And when I first got this scale, all right, so I'm gonna try my best to play the bubble level game here. Try and get this bubble level as possible. Trying to get this little bubble within that red circle, no joke, is somewhat of a game. You can spend literally minutes to try and get this just right. And if your bench is not level, and you could spend a few minutes to get this just right, and if you move this ever so slightly, no joke, this bubble is going to drift out of that red circle. And so in order to make sure that that doesn't happen, and what I had to do is I had to construct this, I don't know what you want to call this, a lab scale top that's ultra level. I made sure that this is level as much as possible. And then there is some adjustable feet on the front of this lab scale on both the left and right that you can fine tune this to get this perfectly level. Now, I can't stress in words how sensitive these lab scales are to any slight breeze. Matter of fact, just waving my hand like this, a slight breath, or obviously having something like a fan is going to just totally destroy the accuracy of your scale. You need to have absolutely no breeze, no wind on your lab scale. Now, when I first got this set up, I was using the standard top, and according to the directions, it said to just put the panel on the back and the left, leaving the right open for the trickle unit, and obviously the front panel open to slide in your pans. But I quickly realized that that wasn't enough. Like I said, just breathing next to this thing, you could actually watch the scale fluctuate. So in order to fix that problem, what I did is I inserted the right panel and I cut an elongated hole out on the side for the trickle tube itself. I had my good friend Scott help me out with that. He's a whiz with a CNC machine, and he CNC'd this out. And I made this hole just wide enough for the trickle tube, and also just tall enough so I had enough room to pitch up or down for fine adjustments on the trickler itself. And I made it a little bit taller just so I could pull this up and out when I'm ready to dump the powder out of the trickler when I'm done with my reloading session. So keep that in mind if you're about to drill that hole. You know, I haven't done this, and I guess if you were to attempt this, or at least I was to attempt this, and I'm not responsible for you cracking your plexiglass, but I think if I was going to try and do this and didn't have a friend with a CNC machine like this, is I'd probably try and get a brand spanking new spade bit, probably even run it backwards at a super high RPM, and try and melt through this as best as you possibly can. And put no pressure on it. I mean, just literally let the weight of the drill melt its way through the plexiglass, and you're going to get a lot of plexiglass burrs once you first do that. You might have to come back through the other side and maybe even cut those off with a utility knife. but I don't think it'd be that hard to get that hole in there. And I made this almost 7/8 of an inch tall, so roughly a 7/8, maybe a 1-inch hole should be enough for fine adjustments and enough room to pull this up and pull it out. So what I did is I just got my trickle unit where I thought it would be, marked the plexiglass, went out in the garage and cut it. Now on the front panel here, I just cut down that panel with a hacksaw. I just took my time. I wasn't fast about it. And I was able to cut that clean off with just a regular hacksaw. And then on the top part here, matter of fact, I'll splice in a video of that. I ground that down. I left a little bit of a notch here to work with this specific clear lid that I got from Data Weighing Systems. And I got this clear lid for roughly, I think it was about 65 to 70 bucks, which in my opinion is absolutely needed. And there is a reason why I wanted this clear lid. I want to see every single speck of powder drop out of that trickle tube, especially if I'm going to be using something like this reducer here. And this reducer, if you want to go for the ultimate precision, adds maybe a couple extra seconds. But you can virtually watch individual specks of powder drop out of this reducer. And in my opinion, if you are going to get this lab scale, this is a nice option to have if you want the ultimate precision. And if you want to go for the ultimate speed, then you might not want to use the reducer. Say like you're just loading up some AR ammo and you're only shooting at 300 yards or less, that might be just fine. But if you're shooting, say, something like a mile, and you're going for that absolute precision, you might want this reducer. But in my opinion, this reducer is absolutely worthless unless you have a clear lid to see it. I mean, it's a real hassle to try and scrunch down and look through the front panel to see an actual speck of powder drop out. And that's why I think this clear lid is an absolute must. Now, while I'm here, the pan stopper that I attached to the actual tray itself, you need to strategically place that just right. You need this pan to stop not dead center of the powder drop. You actually want, and the directions specifically say this in the autotrickler.com directions, to make sure that that powder doesn't spill directly in the middle. If it spills directly in the middle of your pan, you're going to get a lot of splash out. Pieces of Varget or H4350 or whatever powder is going to spill out of your pan and onto your tray. And it specifically says to do a slight off center so that the powder kind of slides somewhat at the bottom side of the pan and then into the bottom of the pan. That will help reduce spill out. I also placed the direction or position of this pan stop so it's in line with my opening. You can actually adjust this a little bit. You can adjust this left or right, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. But you can see I got this so it's facing towards the opening of this front panel area. Now, right above my reloading bench, I have a round duct pipe. It couldn't be any more perfect right above my reloading bench. And I had a slight breeze coming out of this and blowing over my reloading bench. So you might want to double check your environment, at least in the general proximity of my reloading bench. I went over all my ductwork with some foil tape here, obviously right above my bench. And just to show you guys a little bit behind the scenes, right behind me is a furnace. And when I'm not video recording, this is either full blast and heat in the winter or full blast AC in the summer. And no joke, I could feel a breeze coming off this plenum right above this furnace right onto my lab scale. And no joke, that slight breeze, I was catching it on the lab scale. It is that sensitive. So make sure you check your area for any type of breeze, fans, you name it. You need to get it fixed. Now, one thing I didn't like about this enclosure is how it sat on top of the lab scale itself. I found it to wobble way too much, especially when this auto trickler was dropping some powder. I mean, this thing kind of, flips up quick and flips back down. And I'll splice in a feed right now. Now, something else that I noticed that I didn't particularly like is this is kind of wobbly, and I'm actually surprised they designed it this way, unless, I don't know, mine is a little out of spec, but you can see it doesn't really fit that well. A video showing you how wobbly this enclosure was, and I just wasn't satisfied with it. Maybe I'm just too anal. But what I did is I took some heavy duty felt blanket here. I got this at Menards, and it's roughly, it's not expensive, it's only a few bucks, and it's roughly about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's got an adhesive back, you can peel it off. And I cut these little chunks of this heavy duty felt blanket that I got from Menards, and I cut these at roughly a 1/2 inch long by roughly 1/4 of an inch wide. And I just stuck these on the perimeter, pretty much right below these corner posts of the enclosure, and that completely solved the problem of this wobbling. And plus the fact that these are, they're not really squishy. There's a little bit of firmness in it, but it did help, reduce that shock of this arm not violently, but quickly going up and back down. And man, it really did help fix that issue. Now, at least for my cable management, I put 2 of these cord clips on the side here for the wire that comes off the lab scale and goes to the powder drop itself, just to make sure that I don't bust these pins on this wire where it hooks into the lab scale itself. I was reading a couple forums, and one of the guys in the forums mentioned that one of his pins, and I'll try my best to pull this out here. You can see these pins here. Let me zoom in. These pins on the end of the wires, I wouldn't say they're fragile, but I can see if you don't use some type of wire harness like I'm doing here, at least in my opinion, I could see this easily busting off. And I was reading a couple forums, that's actually what happened to a couple guys. So that put me on to doing some type of wire harness to make sure that that doesn't happen. I don't see this happening much, at least for the wire that goes to the powder drop itself, because you don't really remove the whole entire enclosure itself. This top part of the hopper actually easily removes, comes off and goes back on when time comes to emptying the powder. But when it comes to the trickle unit itself, that you do have to physically remove, tilt, drop that powder, and I could just see these pins either getting bent or eventually busting off. And like I said, I read in a couple forums where that actually happened to a couple guys. So to make sure that that doesn't happen, I put 2 of those cord clips on the side and 2 cord clips on the back. Now, if you guys have watched my reloading series in the past, you know at least with the Charge Masters that I kept a dryer sheet underneath the front of the scale itself. Matter of fact, I would take that pan out, I would wipe it down, I'd take this part out, I'd wipe that down with the dryer sheet. That seems to help eliminate static electricity pretty good. And matter of fact, I keep a box of these in my reloading room just for that sole purpose. And it seemed to work great for this, and I guess I'm going to carry that on with the A&D scale. I just put some underneath my lab scale. Matter of fact, before I put the scales on this flat surface, I wiped this down with these dryer sheets, and I replace these ever so often. But I'll actually take one of these dryer sheets and I will rub down my pan, the inside, the outside, and even the tray top. This tray top is actually removable. You can take this tray top off, and I'll take the enclosure off and I'll wipe that down. And at least for me, it might be a little bit of voodoo, but it seems to work in regards to eliminating static electricity. All right, so you can see on the trickler itself, I put some black markings on this part of the trickler tube. I even put a couple X's here, and trust me, you're going to want to do that just so you can see this spinning. If you don't put some type of markings on here, you're just not going to see it spinning, and you want some type of reference when you're using this. Now, when it comes to the app itself, it's really easy to find on the App Store. You just install it, and literally just click on it just like I did, hit disconnected, tap to scan. No joke, finds the Bluetooth connectivity that fast, and it just auto connects. Once you've done it once, you're done. And this is really intuitive. It's really well designed. It's simple, and it's really following that KISS method. I really like to keep it simple, stupid, you know. And for example, we're going to drop some H4350 here soon, and I'm going to enter 41.3. But you know, if I want to tweak this out nice and fast, I can add 0.1, or if I want to do a full grain. So, and if I just want to start over, I just hit 41.3, and it really is that easy. Now, there is an auto throw feature here. I'm mostly going to keep this enabled all the time. But I know some of my good friends, especially like my good friend James Phillips, I know he likes to let his scale completely settle down, zero, and settle for a little bit before he drops his next powder drop. And according to him, he likes to disable that, wait till this scale completely settles down, and then manually drops each one. I think for me though, I think enabled is going to be just fine. And there's also some manual controls here. You can see it. You can start the motor. If I want to press this, you can watch this start up on the Trickler itself. So I'm going to hit start motor. And you can see why I'm putting those reference marks on the Trickler itself, so I can see that Trickler spinning. You definitely need to do this when you first put powder in here to get that powder to flow through the Trickler when you first start your reloading session. And there's also the cycle auto throw. So definitely you're going to do that at the beginning of your reloading session. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. But I just want to show you guys up close and personal some of these functions and buttons on this app. And one quick note, I was initially going to use my iPad 2, but this is such an old iPad, it has Bluetooth 2.0. And according to the Auto Trickler V3 instructions, you need at least Bluetooth 4.0. And I kind of mentioned that in the early part of this series. And that's why I kind of stole my girlfriend's iPad. This is her iPad now. Anyway, so keep that in mind. If you're going to use some type of Android or Apple product, you need at least Bluetooth 4.0. Now, at least for me, from Data Weighing Systems, this came with a 100 gram, this isn't grain, this is 100 gram calibration weight. And you can Google this yourself, you know, grams to grains, and enter in 100 grams, and it will come up to 1,543.24 grains. That's the conversion of 100 grams to grains. So I physically just write that on the side, so when I put this on, I know exactly that it's calibrated. Now, I talked to Data Weighing Systems about this, and they highly suggest just leaving your lab scale, the A&D FX120i, in standby mode. You can see this little arrow here. When I turn this on and I turn this off, you can see that this little arrow, that means it's in standby mode, and you should really just leave this on in standby mode, not unplug it. With that being said, every once in a while you might want to completely unplug it and plug it back in. There is a finite amount of memory that this lab scale can hold, and if you're constantly calibrating it and calibrating and calibrating it, you might want to wipe that memory clean and start over from scratch. And really the only way to do that is to unplug it and plug it back in. But with that being said, you're probably going to want to do, and I suggest doing, and Data Weighing Systems recommends this, is to keep it in standby mode. So when you power this up, it's ready to rock and roll. And to be honest with you, what I would do, even in standby mode, is to start it up and let it sit in this state for at least a solid 15 to 20 minutes before you even start your reloading session. You can see how sensitive this thing is to wind. But with that said, let me show you how I calibrate my scale. Now, when it comes to calibrating the scale itself, while it's in standby mode, I take the pan off, I turn it on. This is where you gotta be careful not to breathe on the scale, especially while you're calibrating it. So I'm actually turning my head to the left to the right to make sure I don't breathe on this. And we're going to hold down the cal button until it says cal out. And then we're going to hit print once. And it's asking for the 100 gram, not grain, gram weight. So I'm going to place that on the scale. I'm going to let it rest for a little bit. Now I'm going to hit print. Once it says end, I'm going to power the unit off into standby mode. And then I'm going to remove my calibration weight, which is 1,543.24, and then turn it back on. I'm going to select 0 out the tray, and then put my calibration weight back on, and right there, 1,543.24. And you can see on the side of my pan, I have written 800.28, and that's exactly what it's coming up as on the scale. Now, the resolution of this is 0.00, and it will drop powder within 0.02 accuracy with this setup. And in order to exponentially increase the speed that I can drop powder is I made 2 pans weigh exactly the same amount. So I contacted autotrickler.com and he sent me an additional pan. And in order to make this pan weigh exactly the same as the other one, you can see I put a little piece of electrical tape on the side. And I just got some white electrical tape. And I am not kidding. When I say a sliver of electrical tape, I'm talking a sliver when you're trying to adjust this. When you get close to say 0.30, a hair sliver off this electrical tape will make the difference. And just to prove that point to you, let me pull this pan out here. And I got another piece of tape on here. And how I did this is I just stuck it off the side here and I inserted that pan, checked the weight. Say for pure example, I need to come down to 802.10. So I would take this pan out and I would take, now you're going to watch this, this was 0.16. I can't breathe on this thing. It's that literally that sensitive. So 1/6. I'm gonna take a sliver off of this. Now watch this. And when I say a sliver, just a smallest amount, that much, just that dinky little bit. Remember, it was 1/6. It's now 1/2, and it is that sensitive. So you keep on whittling away at this thing. So like you want 1/0. There is another little sliver of tape. Right there, 1/0. Let's take that tape back off and get back to 800.28. Like I said, I got this other pan here with that little piece of tape, and it should weigh the exact same amount. So let me pull this one off here. Put this other one on that has the little piece of tape. It's exactly 800.28. All right, so let me drop some of this H4350 on my bench here. I just want to pluck one single speck of this powder out of this container, and we're going to see if it registers on this lab scale. So I would say this H4350 is a rather large extruded stick powder, and I'm going to grab an average size piece here. So let me grab this one here, and I'm going to make sure that this pan is zeroed out. It says 800.28. I'm going to zero this out. And we're going to see if this little speck, single speck of H4350 registers. And I'm going to double check and make sure there's nothing in the pan. So we're good there. And I'm going to drop that in. So we got one single speck of H4350 in there. I'll see if I can zoom in so you guys can see that at the very bottom. You zoom back out and see if this registers. Now, this weighs within 0.02, so it's either going to be 0.02 or 0.04. And you can see it's kind of hovering between 0.02, 0.04. And I've had some of my friends that have much higher resolution lab scales that go to 0.000, and they've weighed this on their $2,000+ lab scales, and they say on average H4350 weighs in at roughly 0.025, maybe on the high end 0.028ish somewhere. It's almost pushing 0.03, so you can see it's kind of hovering between 0.02 and 0.04. So it's within 0.02 accuracy in regards to measuring this powder. So if we can get within 0.02 of our projected powder drop, in essence, at least with H4350, which is a rather large stick extruded powder, you're measuring within at least one speck of H4350, if not two. And if you're going for those long distance shots, you really, really need that accuracy. All right, so let's get some H4350 in the hopper and trickler. Now, as for the hopper itself, you can actually remove this. And if you notice on the bottom here, it shows a 0. And if I spin this, it shows an X at the bottom. Now, if I want to shut off the flow from the hopper, I could spin this to the X to shut it off, and I put it to the O for open. And obviously, if I take this off, and I don't know if I can zoom in on this, but you can see if I got it on the O, it's open, and then I could spin this to the X to shut it off. And that's how you empty your hopper at the end of your loading session. And I'll show you that at the very end, but at least you get an idea of how this works. So I got my pan down here to catch any powder, and I'm actually going to spin this around so this little notch is in the front so I can clearly see it. I'm going to put it to the open, and I'm going to dump some of this H4350 into the hopper. All right, let's get some powder into the trickler. Make sure this is pushed all the way forward before I start. On the trickle tube, you want to make sure this isn't sticking out. If it sticks out a little bit and this starts up, this belt will come off. So make sure this is pushed all the way forward. And like I mentioned earlier, I got markings on here on this part of the trickle tube, and I also put some X's on here, so when this is spinning, it's clearly noticeable that this trickle tube is spinning. All right, so being that we're dropping H4350, I'm going to assume this is probably going to be for something like a 6.5 or 6mm bullet flavor. So I'm purposely going to enter in 41.3. I would say that's a pretty average drop, powder drop for something like 6.5 Creedmoor, maybe even something close to a 243 to give you a pure example here. And the first initial thing you're going to do is, if we're dropping 41.3, I actually had this set for 28.3 in regards to the initial powder drop. And you can see in the directions here, I can turn this out, and he has, at least from autotrickler.com, he has some numbers on here to get you remotely close to the powder drop. So being that we're dropping 41.3, I'm going to adjust this lefty-loosey. I'm going to adjust this out until I reach the 4 mark, maybe a little over that. So I'm at the 3. Keep on going until I see the 4. So I'm at the 4 right now. I'm going to go a little bit past that. So I'm going to try something right about there, right past the 4 mark on the powder drop. So at this point, I got the powder hopper set to open, and on the app, I'm going to hit cycle auto throw, make sure that my pan is dead center, so I don't have powder over the place. Hit cycle auto throw, and I'm probably going to just do that maybe 2 or 3 times just to make sure we got a solid amount of powder flowing through the powder drop itself. I'm going to take this out, dump it into the top, put this back in, and I'm going to hit this one more time, and we're going to see how close we are to 41.3. So we're pretty close there. Now I'm going to start out initially without the reducer. I'm going to show you both ways here in this video. So right now I'm going to start without the reducer. Now here are my settings without a reducer, and I'm going to show you how to do all this here in a little bit. And my first thing here is we use a bubble level, just so the bubble level slides off the trickler here. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. I'm going to explain that a little bit better. And I'm going to adjust the slider in the back. And let me get to that point here in the manual. So there's a slider in the back, and I would show you in the back of my lab scale, but I don't want to move it. I got this thing leveled out. It takes forever to get it back to level. So you can see all the way to the positive side, that'd be like 100%, and to the number 2 side, we got to the negative. And what this slider does, it adjusts the speed of the trickle tube. So if you want that to spin slower at the tail end, you go more to the negative. If you want it to spin a little bit faster on the tail end of dropping that powder, you go towards the positive. So right now, at least with my settings, without the reducer, I have the slider, the plus and negative slider, dead center. So if you can get that slider right dead center in the middle, at least that's what I'm using for my adjustments without the reducer. Also, if I'm going for 41.3 grains of powder, I found, at least for myself, that dropping initially with a powder drop, to drop 1.7 grains below your target weight, and let the rest be done with the trickler. So if our target value is 41.3, I'm going to drop initially with a powder drop negative 1.7 from that. So with the powder drop, I want to get remotely close to 39.6. Now, it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to get it close. But that should be your target weight that you initially want to drop with the powder drop itself. So being that I need a little bit more powder to initially drop, I'm going to empty this out. Make sure we're at 800.28, so we're looking good there. And I need more powder to enter the stem, so I'm going to lefty-loosey screw this out just a little bit more. It doesn't take much. And I'm going to hit cycle auto throw. So we've got to keep on going. So we need 39.6. So we're going to screw this out some more. Hit cycle auto throw. Still need to keep on going. So once you get a method to your madness, if you've had this set up for a while, you can cruise right through this. And like I said, I just got this 2 weeks ago, so I'm still learning myself. But hopefully you guys can learn from me. We can learn together. So let's keep on going until we reach that 39.6 or 1.7 grains below our target. See, we're getting really close. It doesn't take much. To be honest with you, that's probably good enough. I just screwed that out just a hair. Let's do one more. Achieve that 39.6. And I think that's going to be pretty good. I'm probably just going to call it right there. It's never going to be perfect on the powder drop, so you got to keep that in mind. All you're doing is getting it remotely close for your trickler to do the rest of the work. See, you can see I didn't screw that out much and it already went past. So I think I'm just going to screw that back to where it was, and we're going to stick with that. At least gets us remotely close to that 39.6 or 1.7 grains below 41.3 of our target powder drop. Now when it comes to adjusting the flow rate, most is done with the adjustable leg on the back of the trickler. So make your major adjustments with the back of the leg, and then you do your minor adjustments with the slider in the back. Now, like I said before, without the reducer, I have that slider in the back dead center, so 50%, and we're dropping 1.7 grains under the trickle. Now, I'm going to show you here at least how I set this up really quick. So it's quick and easy, and it's repeatable, and you'd be amazed how accurate it is putting a little bubble level on top of this trickler. Now, surprisingly, this trickle tube is on the same level plane as the top of the trickle hopper itself. So if I screw this out, let me get a better view here for you guys so you can see the trickle leg, something like that. So if I screw this out, lefty loosey, let me get this back on top here. You're going to watch that bubble slide more towards level. So I'm going to keep this, I'm doing half turns here on the rear leg. So half turns, and keep an eye on that bubble. You're going to notice it's going to slide over. And this is very precise. I found this to work out really darn good. Let me try and zoom on here. So you can see this is a half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn. So it doesn't take much to move this bubble level. So right there is about perfect, right in the middle. Let me zoom back out. And I was actually quite amazed how level the top is. You can see this is pretty much level, how the top of this hopper of the trickler itself is in comparison to the tube. It's almost spot on. And let me zoom back in, and I'll pitch this up. And you can see how close these two are. Well, if that's the case, you can use the top of the hopper as a guide. Obviously, you can't do it on the tube because it's in the lab scale itself. So right there, that's dead center level. Also, the top is dead center level. And if that's the case, and I found out, if I want to repeat these methods, or watch this. So I'm going to screw this in a half a turn, half a turn, half a turn, half a turn. That's 2 full turns, 2.5, 3, 4, 3.5, 4. You can see how sensitive this is in regards to making half turns on your legs. And the reason why I'm doing this is so I can keep track of what I'm doing. This is repeatable. And I'm going to try and zoom in here a little bit better. So I'm going to screw this back out. So half a turn, 2 full turns, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4 full turns. So you can see it's back to level. And if that's the case, you can use this method with a little mini bubble level. You can pick this up at like Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, any hardware store, and they're dirt cheap. I got this for $2 at Menards, and it works great. The bubble level should just slide off the level as it's pitched upwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this back leg here to the point where this bubble just slides off, and you're going to see how sensitive this is. Just turning this a quarter of a turn is all it takes. All right, so making sure that the trickle tube is clearing the hole in the side of the plexiglass, we're good there. So I want this to pitch up to the point where this bubble just slides off level. So what I'm going to do here in order to get this to pitch up, I'm going to screw it in righty-tighty. So half a turn, 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 half a turn. You can see that bubble level is just starting to creep. Now I'm going to start slowing down here, and it doesn't take much, just quarter turns at this point. And you're going to notice the second that bubble slides off, so about a quarter of a turn, right, quarter of a turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, right there. The bubble just slid right off the level, and that's where you stop. And the reason why I wanted to come up with this method for you guys, at least for myself, so it's repeatable and it's quick. Once you get this method to your madness down, at least if you want to follow my techniques, no joke, you can do this within seconds. It doesn't take long at all. So without the reducer, you do what I just got done doing, and with the reducer, you pretty much get the bubble level exactly level. So that bubble is right in the middle of those two lines. You know, maybe a slight pitch down. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit later in the video, but let's get going with dropping without the reducer. And trust me when I say this, using this for 2 weeks, testing it over and over and over, having this clear top lid, in my opinion, is an absolute must. The ability to see actual individual specks of powder drop out of this, especially when you're using the reducer and you want to be ultra anal about this, and you want to manually cycle off just one speck to get it just perfect, so you don't have to scrunch down and look underneath a lid that you can't see through. This clear top lid that I got from Data Weighing Systems for roughly $65 is worth every penny. Now this current setup without the reducer, I guess I would consider this hyper mode. You can see how sensitive this is. You can't even wave your hand next to it. But if you're shooting something like an AR or maybe a bolt gun less than 300 yards, this would probably be perfect. And I think this is what I'm going to do, especially if I want to fly through dropping some powder. You know, if I'm shooting maybe like a mile or 1,000 yards with a bolt gun, I think I'm going to put in this reducer and just use one single pan. I'm not going to use two total pans. And if you really want to kick this in the high gear with hyper mode, use two total pans that weigh the same weight. But enough of the BS talk, let's drop some powder. All right, so let's get the show on the road here. I got 41.3 grains of H43 loaded up on the Bluetooth app. I'm going to hit tap to set target. .2 seconds within 0.02 accuracy. Now, just like I was showing you guys in the third part of this series during that live event, how pretty consistent this hyper mode is. .16 seconds within 0.02. Let's give this another whirl here. .76 seconds, right on the money. That is insanely fast. All right, for those that haven't seen that live event part 3 of this series, dropping 50 total drops into 50 5.56 cases, let me just give you a quick idea of how you can turn this hyper mode into hyper drive with 2 total pans. So let me hit tap to set target. All right, within 0.02, now as I'm pulling this pan out, I'm putting the fresh pan in that weighs the exact same weight. And I'm dropping this powder into the casing. I'm tapping the side of the funnel, make sure all the powder drops into the casing. And as I'm coming back around with my pan, this one's all done, right on the money within 0.02. And I'm pulling this one out and putting the fresh pan in. And I'm just going to repeat that process over and over. Tapping the side of the funnel, making sure all that powder's into the casing, coming back around with a fresh new pan. And then 0.02, you're ready to rock and roll. And you just slide this one in and you're done. And it is insanely fast. It turns this hyper mode into hyper drive. All right, let's move over from without reducer to with a reducer in the settings. I'm going to quickly show you how to get that set up with the reducer. So I'm going to carefully pick this up, and that's why I put an elongated hole on this. You can see how sensitive it is. Just waving my hand around this thing affects this lab scale. That's why I put this elongated hole on here, so I can lift this up carefully and then pull it out without getting any powder on the lab scale. Matter of fact, you can see one speck just dropped out on my bench here. Now I'm going to carefully screw this in and get this reducer installed. And it just screws right into the tip of the trickle tube. All right, so with the reducer, I'm going to have this bubble level just slightly off level, pitching down ever so slightly. When I say ever so slightly, I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. It doesn't take much. And I even have a note here, if you want something even more consistent, you can put that bubble level exactly dead level. And it does slow it down a little bit, but man, I tell you, there's very little to no overthrows or underthrows, right down to that speck of H4350. Now in regards to the trickle tube slider, right now without the reducer, I have this set dead center between the negative and positive. But with these settings, I found that it's best to have the slider with the reducer close to the positive. If negative is 0, positive is 100%. I usually put this right about 80 to 85%, where without the reducer, it's at dead center at 50%. So let me make those fine adjustments here. All right, so in order to get this more level with a slight pitch down, when I say slight, it's ever so slight, I need this leg to come out. So I'm going to spin this lefty-loosey. So left turn,
left turn, half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn,
half turn, and you can see right there, it doesn't take much. So if I go another half a turn,
half a turn, half a turn, half a turn,
half a turn, you can see how sensitive this bubble level is to just a half a turn. And right there, I would say is just about level. And what I've noticed, at least with this reducer, I want to go slightly past this. And let me see if I can get you even closer. Hold on a second. All right, so I'm going to give this another half a turn, half a turn, half a turn. You can see how sensitive this is using the bubble level. And I think this is great for repeatability. You want to switch back and forth from the reducer to no reducer. So I'm actually going to go back to close to level, maybe a little off level with a slight pitch down. And when I say slight, that is about it. So let's back up here and give this another whirl. Now remember, without the reducer, we're dropping 1.7 under our target weight of 41.3, which was 39.6. In fact, if I hit cycle auto throw, it's probably going to be right around there. Yeah, really close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but without the reducer, it was 39.6. But we need to change this. If we switch over to the reducer here, I need to drop 1.2 under our target weight, at least for my settings, not 1.7. So with the reducer, 1.2, our target is 41.3. minus 1.2. So I'm going to get this to drop right around 40.1. And that exponentially, I found, speeds up this process with the reducer. So let me spin this out lefty-loosey to get a little bit more powder to drop out. And it's not going to take much here. Maybe about a half turn, I'm going to guess. So our drop weight of 40.1 for the trickle. Cycle auto throw right there. I think that should be good enough. I might turn that in just ever so slightly. So let me just try this once more just to make sure. Once you get a method to your madness down, you'll fly right through this. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, just close. And that will work. Now just to make this crystal clear with the reducer, without the reducer I had the slider dead center at 50-50, And with the reducer, I had this slider at roughly 85%. So if negative is 0, positive is 100%, I'm going to have this roughly about 80 to 85%. All right, so I got my stopwatch set up here, get my pan on the tray, hit tap to set target. All right, so right on the money there at 41.3 at 9.3 seconds. All right, so it took a little bit longer, close to 13 seconds, 12.94 and 0.02. And right at 10.85 seconds within 0.02. So it kind of gives you a good idea of what you can do with this reducer. Let's give this one more shot. And right on the money. So like I said, keep in mind, one spec of this H4350 weighs over 0.02. So I feel pretty confident that I am dropping within one speck of powder. Now, if you really want to be anal about this, and what's nice about this clear top lid is you can see this settle out a little bit at under 0.02, and I can turn this trickle tube until I see one speck of powder drop. Right there. So 41.3, I went over 0.02 because one spec of this H4350, like I shown you guys at the beginning of this video, registers between 0.02 and 0.04 because this measures within 0.02 accuracy. But I feel confident I'm at least dropping at least within 2 specs, if not 1. So if you're interested in one of these reducers, send my good friend Daniel Ferris a message on Messenger. Matter of fact, I'll splice in a picture of his profile here on Facebook. And send him a message. Tell him you're watching my video and you're interested in one. And I believe he ships these out for $25 each. Not only for the V3 combo unit, but I think he even spins them up for the Charge Master. And he just spins these up on the side. Matter of fact, I think he makes like a batch of 10 or 20 and sells them off, and then makes another batch of 10 or 20. So he might be able to send one out to you right away. Just depends on where he's at on spinning these up. But like I said, if you're interested, 25 bucks, send a good old Daniel a message on Messenger. And not only is he an avid shooter, but he's just a good old family man. It's a great way to support Daniel and his family by purchasing an amazing product. All right, let me show you how to get the powder out of this combo unit. So this is why I like to use that wire harness in the back, because if you do this over and over and over, I can see those pins eventually breaking off. I'm going to try my best to do this with a camera in front of me. And then dump the trickle tube. Give this a couple spins just to make sure that's empty. So the trickler is completely empty now. It's really that easy. Now when it comes to the hopper, you just spin this to the left until the X clicks right over this notch of the hopper itself. And you're going to hit cycle auto throw until it stops dropping powder. And right about there, it's going to stop dropping powder. So what you can do at that point is you can remove this off the top. and drop this like so. You don't have to be super anal about it, just put it right back on top. Most of that powder will drop back down in the bottom. And then just open this right back up. Hit cycle auto throw until it stops. I'll probably even get a brush and brush out the inside, make sure all the powder's out of it. And just keep on going until no more powder comes out. Sometimes I'll flick this a little bit. And it is that easy. Now another nice reason why I like having a clear hopper is I can clearly see I got a few specks of overspill back here. So I'm going to remove this trickler, carefully take off this housing with the powder drop. That's another reason why I put a wire harness on here so I don't bust off those pins. And you can see I got a few pieces of overspill here. It's not a lot, but I'm just going to brush these off into the side. And I'll just brush these right onto my bench. I'll clean these up later. And put this enclosure with the powder drop back on. Now, I did have a leaky pipe once, and I did get water all over my bench. So to make sure that I protect this from water damage, because this thing costs well over $1,000, I just got some clear recycling bags from Menards. I got 30 bags for less than $3, and they work great. Just throw them right over this unit. And what I did is I got some anti-static spray, just sprayed it in the inside of this bag. And I think this is just a great, cheap, inexpensive way to protect your purchase, especially if your reloading room is in the basement. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video of the review, setup, modifications, and my personal settings using this with and without a reducer. And like I said, if you're interested in that reducer, get a hold of my good friend Daniel Forrest. Matter of fact, I'll splice in another picture here, send him a message on Messenger. And also, if you're interested in this FX120i with the autotrickler.com V3 package, get a hold of my friends at Data Weighing Systems. Matter of fact, I will have a link in the description box below to make it easy for you guys to get in contact with Data Weighing Systems. Just send them an email or give them a call and they will email you a quote with the current price. And they are really, really quick in regards to shipping. Like I said, I got mine in less than a week. And don't forget to check out the first 3 videos of this series. This is part 4. We got part 1, part 2, and part 3 of even more information if this is the first video that you are watching of my channel. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this content, and if you do, scratch my back, and I'll continue to scratch your back with these videos by not only subscribe, like, and share, hit that notification bell, become a Patreon. It helps out more than you know, and I will see you guys in the next video of the pimped out Forster coax press. And trust me, that video series is going to be just as amazing as this one. See you guys in the next video.